Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I decided today I'm going to show you two little tiny recorders. Take a look at these. I mean, I bought them in the same place, made by the same company. They're exactly alike. And I bought two of them because I just wanted to. But take a look at the size. Take a look at the size with a regular recorder. See how small this is. Very, very small. If you take a look at it with an alto, which I brought today, look how small it is. Very, very small. And yet it plays. Now, I'm going to play it a little bit, and I'm going to play a couple of other instruments too, and tell you a little bit about it. This is just very tiny. It's kind of like a toy. It was sold in a fast food restaurant. I'll tell you later what it was. But I saw it advertised. I saw it in the fast food restaurant. I go there frequently because they really do have good food and a good variety. And I looked at it and I says, I got to have one of those. I didn't expect it to play at all. Well, listen to this. You start to lose it. That's interesting. It plays fairly well. It's a one-piece wonder. I mean, you can't take it off. You'd break it. It's designed to look like a regular recorder. It has the little designs in the bottom, so it looks like you've got a little bell, you know, and it's got a little circle here. It's got a thumb hole, which the recorders have. It's got the labium, which the recorders have. It has a Fipple mouthpiece, which the recorders have. It even has a little circle, a little line where the block is. It's built like a regular recorder, but it's just one piece. You can't pull it apart. So it plays. A little off on the octave. A little sharp on the octave, but basically I tried to figure out what key is this in. So I took out my little sopranino. Take a look at this. Is a regular recorder made to be played by. It's a really well-made recorder. It's not a toy. It's a sopranino. The sopraninos are the smallest ones that are made for play. And it's about the same size. Well, a little difference, but not much difference. And when I play the first note of this, I'm going to play this the same fingering as I used for the other one. That's the sopranino. Pretty close. Now, let me grab my alto. They all seem to be playing in about the same key. That happens to be the key of F. It's in the key of F. The sopranino's in the key of F. The altos are in the key of F. And so these instruments, these little instruments that I got, are also in the key of F. And they don't play too badly. I mean, you wouldn't want to use them for a solo or anything like that, but they pitch. Very hard to get the lowest note. Where did I buy these? I got them at Wendy's. It was a promotional. And I walked in and I looked at it and I says, I got to have one. And I talked them into selling me two of them, and they're in the key of F. Now the question is, how do I know it's in the key of F? Well, one clue is that I'm playing an F instrument and it matches. That would tell me right away. But what if I didn't have the sopranino and I didn't have the alto that's also in the key of F? How would I know what key an instrument is in? I'll show you a good way to do it. But you need to start off with an instrument that's in the key of C. You can either have a keyboard or an ocarina that plays in C, or a recorder that plays in C. That's the C on the C melody recorder. Now, if you can play a scale, no sharps and no flats, then it's in the key of C. The soprano, the melody soprano, which is what this is, in the key of C. So if you can remember that tone, that's C. If I use the same fingering, what do I get? Not the same at all. Or if I use my sopranino, the same fingering. It doesn't sound like the C does. So what I do, I take the regular recorder, I play in the key of C, or I could do it on my flute. I could do it because the flute is in the key of C too, the regular flute. And I play the C note. I play another instrument that's not in the key of C, and when I play that fingering, of course, I don't get C. So then I take my regular recorder and I play the note that matches what the other instruments play, and that's the key. It happens to be F. So I take the instrument, I take the recorder, and if that's what you're playing at, you could use that, but you could use a piano or you could use a flute. But it's got to be in the key of C. You play that C note, that's what the C is. When I play the sopranino, it's not going to come out. That finger's not going to come out the same. So I take the recorder again, and I fiddle around, and I find out that's the key that instrument is in. It's in the key of F, because it matches the F. When I play it on here, it matches the F. If I play the C, it won't match. So I have to figure out on this instrument what note matches it, and that will tell me what key it's in. You know, there are a lot of little things you can do. You know, if you want to tune up a guitar, how do you do, or a violin, they tune to A. They have an A string, they tune to A. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure it's in tune if you don't have an instrument that you can balance it off? You know, if you tune up an instrument, somebody plays a note that they know is on pitch, and other instruments pitch to it, so they know that they're in pitch. Now with the guitars, they have a tuning device that they can attach, and when they play it, it'll tell them for every string whether it's off or whether it's on, and they can go by that. But supposing they don't have that, supposing you're playing a guitar and you don't have any idea, or a violin, you have no idea whether it's in key or not, one thing you can do is to pick up your phone, not your cell phone, it won't work, but your phone that has a dial tone. Your landline phone probably has a dial tone. And what the dial tone is perfect pitch A. That perfect pitch A, you can tune instruments to that. And what you get is, and from that you can tune any instrument that needs to be tuned to an A. So here is my melodica. Here is an A. You could tune that. I could tune an orchestra to that. This is perfect pitch. It's a Hona made in Germany. It's a very, very nice instrument. If I pick up a phone, landline phone, what do I get for a dial tone? I usually get something like this. Let's see. Does that sound familiar, like a dial tone? That top tone is going to be an A. But you also hear a tone that's not as loud as the A. It's about a third below. It matches your dial tone. But if you don't have an instrument like this that's in perfect pitch, you could take and use a landline phone, get the dial tone, listen to the top note. It's going to be an A, and you could tune any instrument, like any stringed instrument that has an A string, and get it tuned to the telephone, and then you could tune the rest of the instrument from there. So there's lots of little things you can do, just kind of fun stuff. This melodica, I've had it for years. It's not the only one I have. I have another one that has an actual keyboard. But as you can see on this melodica, all of these keys are like a keyboard. These would be the black and white keys that I have over here that my hand is on, and that represents all of the sharps and the flats, not the regular notes, but the sharps and the flats. And then all of the white keys over here represent the regular keyboard, the regular white keys. And as you can see, it's like a keyboard in the fact that you've got your 3 black keys, and then that's followed by 2, followed by 3, followed by 2, just like it is on a piano. And so you can play it, you can play chords on it like you can on a piano. That's a C chord, you know. All the notes are there. You can play in various keys because it's like a keyboard. It's not as big as a regular keyboard, but I use this a lot, and it's very, very helpful. It's very nice. Somebody said, "You're going to play that?" And I says, "This is a perfectly pitched Hohner melodica, and it really is a nice instrument, and I play it a lot." So just something else to show you. Okay, so you can tell when you are pitching an instrument, you can use certain things to make sure that your instrument is in pitch. Now, what happens if it's not in pitch? Well, then you have a real problem, because if it's not in pitch, it's not going to match anything. I've got some blue. These are I'm going to put this out of the way for a minute. I brought 4 beautiful little blue recorders, all in the various shades of blue. Now, this is a first note. This is going to be a perfect pitch recorder. And so let me play this first. This is going to be perfect pitch. This will match any of the other recorders that I have. And here's my C. It's a C melody recorder. Okay. Now, let me play this one. Same note. It's flat. It's a good half-step flat. So that puts me in a different key. Well, let me play this one here, which I think I've got 2 of them I've made by the same company. This doesn't look, it's a recorder, but you see they designed it a little different. It's one piece, you can't pull it apart. There's no way you can do it, which means there's no adequate way to clean it, but it has a tone hole in the back, it has the labium in the front, it plays just like a regular recorder. But, so, taking my regular recorder that's on pitch, this means I got to move some things around here. Here's your C. That's sharp. And the other one I played, whoops, I don't want to drop them. Quite a bit flat. If your instrument is not right, now I have one other in here, and I think this is almost exact pitch. Let me get this. Remember that note. That's what is in pitch. Now, what happens if an instrument is out of pitch? Well, it can lead to a lot of complications because you're not in the same key. If you are in the C, and you're playing C, and someone's in the key of C sharp, well, they probably have 5 sharps. Or if they're flat, then they probably have 5 flats, 4 or 5 flats, they're not in the same key. Now I'm going to show you more about that, but probably not this segment, probably next segment. I just want to introduce you to the fact that if your instrument is not in perfect pitch, what's going to happen is that you are in a completely different key. And that means how can you play if you're in an orchestra and you're the one who's off pitch? Well, there are different ways that you can do it. For one thing, some instruments are tunable. These instruments are not very tunable, so that would not help you, but some instruments are tunable. That would help you. Another thing is you can transpose. Now, I'm fortunate, I can kind of transpose in my head. I don't even think about it. This needs to be pitched up by a half a step. Okay, I'll play it pitched up a half a step to match what everybody else is doing. Or if the instrument's too sharp, I've got to bring it down a half a step. That means I'm in a whole different key, but I can do it just thinking about it, just my ear power, you know, just do it by ear. But if it's complicated music, you might even have to write out the music a half a step down in order to match what everybody else is doing, or a half a step up. Most instruments that are going to be out of pitch are going to be a half a step to a step off, either up or down. But it does put you in a completely different key. And in the next segment, I think I'm going to show you more ideally what that means, because you're going to get yourself in all kinds of difficult positions, because you've got to change what you play to match in key what everybody else is playing. That means you may be playing something in 6 sharps. Everybody else is playing it in the key of C, but you're playing it in 6 sharps. How come? Because that's the way it is for you. You know, so in order to make it in pitch. And you can do that by ear. A lot of times you can do that by ear, but if you can't, you might actually have to write it. I know that there was one girl I knew who played French horn, and her father was coming to a service we were giving, and he wanted to listen to her play to the French horn, but her French horn was out of pitch. So she had to, because she couldn't do it by ear. She took the music home, and she had to rewrite all of the music one step. I don't remember whether it was flat or sharp, but it was off anyway. Now, and she had to rewrite the music and play the music that she wrote rather than the music that was already written, because she was off pitch. Most recorders, when you buy them, will be on pitch. But most companies are very careful to make all of their instruments on pitch. But sometimes they're not careful enough, and sometimes you'll get an instrument that plays a half a step off. I was supposed to play the Star-Spangled Banner with an orchestral background for a July 4th celebration, and I was going to be doing that. They asked me to do that. And somebody said, "Hey, Pat, why don't you do it on a tenor sax? It'd be so wonderful on a tenor sax." Well, so I tried it. And I tried it with my sister playing the piano, because she had the music, and of course the piano was perfect pitch. And all of a sudden I realized this instrument, the whole instrument, was a half a step off. For me to play it, I would have to transpose every single note of the Star-Spangled Banner so that the instrument would pitch exactly with the orchestra, exactly with my sister who I was practicing with, and exactly to the orchestra. Well, that seemed like an awful lot of work to me, because since it was such a piece that we were playing, and it was such a magnanimous piece, I decided not to use the instrument. I used another instrument itself that was in pitch. But I really think it's a crime when people produce instruments that are off pitch and you can't really play them. I've seen alto saxophones that way, I've seen tenor saxophones that way, and there are different instruments. If they're not careful, they can get things off pitch. Now, if I take an instrument that's off pitch, and I can usually compare it with a regular instrument, and I can see where it's different. Now, take a look at this in the back, and you will see, if you can see the tone holes in the back, I don't know if you can or not. Okay, the tone hole you can see on the cream-colored instrument, which is perfect pitch. The tone hole on the other instrument is right here by my finger. And even though they're the same size, basically the same size, the tone hole in the back of the blue one is not in the same location. It's like below. You know, it's lower than you normally would think it. Now, you might say, well, it's due to the style of the instrument. But that's not true, because all of the holes in the front are exactly alike. And you can't see that because I haven't got it that way, but you can see the tone hole in the back of this little instrument is not in the same location as the tone hole in my instrument that I normally play. Okay, now that may not show up well, but if you look at the front, the tone holes are in the same position. The instruments are the same size. They may be styled a little different, but the tone holes are the same. But in the back, I can see that the blue one, the tone hole is up a little too high. And sometimes you can see these tone holes are not exactly the same, in the same location. They raised them, or they didn't put them exactly accurate. It has to be exactly accurate. If it is not exactly accurate, the instrument will be out of pitch. So some companies, especially if it's inexpensive, will make mistakes. And yet these two instruments, I think, were made by the same company. They look exactly alike. And one of them is in pitch, and one of them is not. You know, so how come? Something's wrong with the placement of the holes, and I can see in the back there's still a little bit of difference. But does it stop me from playing them? No. If the tone is good enough, I can still play them. But you have to be able to know the instrument well enough to be able to work around that. And if you can't work around that, then you can't play it, you know, unless you're just playing by yourself and it doesn't matter. So we're about out of time. I didn't realize I was going to get on this. I want to show you some things. I didn't realize I was going to get so deeply into it. But I'm going to show you more of this kind of thing and explain more. So please join me next time, and I'll continue with this, because we haven't really quite finished with it. So we'll see you next time.